Quick announcement before we start the show today. Our live recording is this weekend, August 31st at the Red Room Performance Space in Taipei. Come hang out and meet our panelists. You can find more information on our Waste Not, Why Not Facebook page.
Today's episode is part one of our series on trash. If you look at the news lately, you will see many articles saying that recycling is dead, or that the US is sending all of its trash to Asia. Well, some of these things are true, but we should know what's actually happening with our garbage. Recycling isn't black and white. It's not our savior or our failure, but it's something we definitely need to talk about, and that's just what we're gonna do.
Last week, Nate was guest on a news program here called Taiwan Insider by Radio Taiwan International, where Nate went on and talked about trash and recycling and on why Taiwan's a leader in waste management.
It was really fun to be on Taiwan Insider, and it's a great show. You should check them out for all things Taiwan. And more importantly, you can see me on video. We'll have the links in our description. It was really fun getting interviewed by a real host, Andrew Ryan. Andrew is amazing. He doesn't even need a script. He just remembers his lines. Wow. Hi, I'm Nature Nate. I was on TV last week talking about trash. And this is Waste Not, Why Not, a podcast on how not to save the environment.
Today, we're going to play a recording of Nate's conversation with Andrew Ryan. Now, before they got into their 15-minute conversation, Nate took on the challenge of explaining Taiwan's waste management in 60 seconds. And here it is from Taiwan Insider, courtesy of RTI.
Welcome to the show, Nate.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here talking trash with us in the RTI studios.
You got to be careful inviting me on to talk about garbage.
Today you're going to be talking trash. Why is trash such an important issue for you and for Taiwan right now?
Well, I think trash is something that you can't help but notice when you're in Taiwan because there's no litter. There's also no trash cans. And trash is sort of the other half of environmentalism. It's what causes air pollution, water pollution, and it really affects our daily lives. It's something that people think about constantly.
And especially you, I mean, you're constantly thinking about this because this is your job, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm a researcher at the Zhonghua Institution for Economic Research, where I work on garbage analysis and also renewable energy issues for both the public and the private sector.
So you're good at talking trash.
I talk trash all the time.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to your explainer. We have 60 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, go.
In the early 90s, Taiwan had a waste collection rate of just 70%. That means that 30% of Taiwan's garbage was entering the environment and also probably likely entering the ocean. The government wanted to respond by creating landfills all throughout Taiwan to solve the waste management crisis. But in doing that, people began to protest. No one wanted to have a landfill next to their home. Then the government responded with waste incinerators. They had planned 36, they only ended up building 25 due to people protesting. They didn't want waste incinerators near their home and they wanted to deal with garbage in another way. That was through recycling. So the government began to work with NGOs, community groups, and the Environmental Protection Agency to create new waste management laws, the most important of which was extended producer responsibility, where companies had to pay into a recycling fund for each product they created. So by having to pay for the garbage they generate, they create financial solutions to support recycling industries and to deal with the waste management problems.
Very good. You finished that in like 1 minute and 1 second.
I've had a lot of practice.
Okay, wow, that was a wild minute of garbage. Let's take a quick break to learn about some dope, literally dope, artwork happening in Taipei. Pills. Human beings use a lot of them, but it's bad for the environment. According to a global study, 2/3 of test sites had an unsafe level of antibiotics in the water. That makes it easier for superbugs to spread into the wild. To raise awareness of this critical issue, Legacy Lab International, an art studio in Taipei, wants your pills. Well, they want your old pills. Don't worry, rave kids. They will create mixed media art pieces with your real pills to draw attention to this global threat. Check our show description on how to send in your pills. Recycle old medicine, make art, raise awareness, call out Big Pharma. It's a perfect combo. Waste not your pills, why not make some art? Okay, now back to the rest of the interview.
There are some fascinating things that are happening here in Taiwan, and I want to start off with a slide that you shared with me, and that is about Taiwan's garbage generation versus recycling. And I think this paints a really amazing picture of how 20 years ago, the amount of trash that we created was so much higher, and it's gone down dramatically. And then in the last 20 years, also the amount of recycling has dramatically gone up. Can you talk a little bit about what we're looking at here and why this has happened in 20 years?
Sure. This is one of the most fascinating stories I think that Taiwan has to offer. People talk about how, oh, maybe Taiwan doesn't change. Well, this is proof that it does, because in the early 90s, Taiwan was generating a significant amount of garbage per person, about the same as Hong Kong is today. And then over time, because Taiwan put a price on garbage to dispose of it, companies and individuals found ways to decrease the volume of garbage they were generating. Then you have this recycling rate, which increases dramatically. Probably before 1998, there was recycling happening in Taiwan, but this is the start of the formal system. And this is based on the extended producer responsibility scheme.
Okay, what does that mean?
That is, if you look at any product packaging you buy in Taiwan, you'll see this little recycling square symbol.
With the arrows, the green
with
arrows?
With the little arrows,
yep.
yeah. This is Taiwan's take on recycling. Okay. And that means that that product, the manufacturer, has paid into a recycling fund to make sure that that product can get properly disposed of.
Okay.
So the U.S., many countries in Europe have this. The U.S. has this with bottle deposits, but instead of just being for glass bottles or plastic bottles, it's for almost every product in Taiwan, even things like refrigerators and computers and batteries.
So they've paid into a fund which actually ends up making it easier to recycle those things?
Yeah, initially the recycling fund developed the recycling infrastructure itself, paying for things like garbage trucks, recycling centers, waste transfer centers, all that hardcore infrastructure that needs to exist. Today, the recycling fund does innovation as well, but they do a lot of education to make sure that people remember how to recycle and we can educate the next generation.
So actually, Taiwan recycles more than a lot of other countries in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Taiwan's official recycling statistic is a little fuzzy, which is the same for most countries. But based on the research that I've seen and other colleagues I've talked with, it's somewhere between 50 and 60% is the recycling rate.
So that's how much of my garbage ends up getting recycled. The rest of my garbage goes where?
That's how much your garbage goes into the recycling stream. Now, it may not necessarily get recycled, but a high proportion of it is indeed recycled. That's a much harder statistic to figure out, though.
Okay, what happens to the rest of my trash?
It gets burned.
It gets burned. So
it goes into Taiwan's waste incinerators. That's correct.
Okay.
And then after that, the ash from the incinerator will go to a landfill. So Taiwan sends less than 1% of its garbage to landfill.
And that's really important because Taiwan's a very small island. We don't have a lot of room for landfills.
That's correct, but Taiwan could have built more landfills, or like Japan, built more incinerators. But instead, Taiwan decided to develop these policies to reduce waste.
Okay. So now what do you think other countries can learn from Taiwan's experience of waste management over the last 20 years?
Now, Taiwan's situation is obviously unique. There's singing garbage trucks, there's
wait. You have to explain this slowly. Singing garbage trucks. So basically the garbage trucks come at a certain time per day. We toss our trash into the garbage trucks.
That's right.
We give our recycling to the recycling truck.
That's right. You have to have this Pavlovian response to the song For Elise.
I hear For Elise or the Maiden's Prayer. That's the other song. And then I rush out with my garbage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you have to do that. Now, I'm not saying that every country in the world should have that system. But
or use those songs.
I think there's better songs now. But what Taiwan did is took the principles that work for waste management, putting a price on garbage, and then they applied that to Taiwan's own unique context. Europe has done the same thing. Every country with a high recycling rate has extended producer responsibility.
And also, we should say putting a price on garbage. So essentially, if you want to throw trash away in Taiwan, you have to use dedicated garbage bags.
That's correct.
Which you buy. And so you're essentially paying to throw away trash. Now, if you can recycle the stuff in your trash, then you don't have to pay for that.
Yeah, recycling's free, and that creates a whole secondary market, because then you have people who can collect these recyclables and sell them to brokers and then earn money that way.
So now, which parts of Taiwan's waste management system do you think other countries can learn from, if not the singing garbage trucks? And what countries in the world do you think could benefit from some of Taiwan's expertise?
Sure. The three principles that I understand that made Taiwan the success it is are putting a price on garbage, having a strong regulatory framework to go with that, and having a strong cultural and educational movement, and having all three happen simultaneously.
What do you mean regulatory? What do you mean culture and education? Talk to me like I have no idea what's going on here.
Tell people how to recycle. Make it a crime if they recycle improperly, or at least have a fine for that, and then have some way to use money to build recycling infrastructure. So make waste cost money, tell people to recycle, and then maybe punish people if they don't do it correctly. And you have to do all three at once. Many countries can do one, like the US, for example, can do two, but you have to do all three at once if you really want to be a leader in waste management. Okay. Now, are these things resonating with other countries in the world? Are people coming to Taiwan to learn about this? Yeah, Taiwan does a lot of exchanges with Southeast Asian countries. I've personally been to the Philippines and spoken with companies and regulators there to try and explain what Taiwan did well. Places like the Philippines or Malaysia or Vietnam have a much similar history and geography than, say, Western Europe. It's just a different context, a different economic context. Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan all developed good recycling policies at the same time. Now, Southeast Asia can have that same revolution. We have the solutions to waste management. We just need to apply it. Okay. So how does Taiwan compare to like some of the countries in Northern or kind of Western Europe that are also doing pretty well with waste management? Those countries, many of them, Austria, Germany, France, they all have very high recycling rates, also the Netherlands. But the main difference is that Taiwan actually physically recycles a lot of that trash. So when China banned waste imports, that really affected European countries because they did not have the same domestic recycling infrastructure. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are recycling companies in these countries, but not nearly at the same scale that there is in Taiwan, and not nearly with the same proficiency. Okay. Let's talk about some of the areas in which Taiwan can actually improve in terms of its waste management. Sure. So what we talk about a lot is the circular economy, which is another word for zero waste, not sending any garbage to landfill. With Taiwan, though, a lot of its circular economy has been about recycling. Taiwan is hesitant to do projects around sharing, repairing, reuse. There are exceptions. U-Bike is a shining example of a bike share program that's supported at a city level. But in terms of sharing products or buying used clothing or generally repairing objects, Taiwan seems to prefer things new. Okay, sharing products, like what could I share? We're not talking about sharing televisions, right? Not televisions, but things like power tools. So a person on average uses a power drill for about 15 minutes a year. Are you talking about me? I feel very seen. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about just everybody on average, unless obviously you're a craftsman of some sort. Right. So there's these things that are set up. There are a few in Taiwan, but this is more popular in Europe to have a library of things. So you can go and rent a drill, or there's apps like in the Netherlands where you can rent a ladder from your neighbor or rent a bucket, and you can have this sharing. People in Taiwan probably do this, obviously, informally, but not at the same level that European countries do. Okay. So what are some of the things that are happening right now or about to happen in Taiwan in terms of waste management that you're quite excited about? I think that the straw ban was a really good idea. Plastic straw ban, the plastic straw ban, that's correct. And also the plastic bag ban for Taipei City. Taiwan has set itself up fundamentally so well that when they banned plastic bags, they had an easy alternative, which is that if you needed a plastic bag, you could get a garbage bag. And few things environmentally beat a plastic bag reused twice. So what you're talking about is like you go to a supermarket, you forgot to bring your tote bag or any other sort of bag that you can put your stuff in. So if you need to buy a bag, instead of buying just any old plastic bag that you're going to toss away, you buy a trash bag. Certified. A certified trash bag, which you have to buy anyway if you want to throw your trash away. Correct. One of the things that I learned from you actually is that it's almost better to use plastic bags than paper bags. Yeah, it's unintuitive.
Yeah, that kind of blew my mind. And this is something I learned from your podcast, which we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But something about how you have to use paper bags 5 times in order to kind of really make it, what, environmentally friendly?
To sort of balance out. Yeah, it's true. So a lot of people look at pollution and they just see the visual side effect. You see a plastic straw on the beach and you assume plastic is really environmentally damaging. But there's a lot that goes into the background behind plastic bag production and paper bag production. You have to cut down the tree, process the pulp. You need certain solvents and chemicals and materials. Actually, when you measure that all out, a plastic bag is better for the environment than a paper bag, especially if you reuse it twice.
Okay. Any other things that's happening in Taiwan in terms of waste management that's got you excited right now? Or in the next, let's say in the next couple of years that you think will happen?
What's really exciting is that major fashion brands, Adidas, Nike, H&M, Zara, are all committing to use sustainable textiles. And Taiwan has a 95% collection rate for plastic bottles. Taiwan is a key player in functional fabrics for textiles. And so Taiwan is very well positioned to create sustainable plastic textiles out of recycled bottles.
So we're seeing things like shoes that are made from recycled plastic bottles.
Shoes that are made from ocean trash, World Cup jerseys that are made out of ocean trash. There was a Taiwanese company behind that. I think as big brands continue to demand for recycled content, they're going to be able to find that in Taiwan.
Very exciting things to look forward to. Another exciting thing that you can look forward to is listening to Nate's brand new podcast called Waste Not, Why Not on Ghost Island Media. Tell us, why did you want to do an environment-related podcast?
I wanted to do an environmental-related podcast because, not everyone loves graphs. Not everyone loves graphs like I do, and some people have busy lives and they just need to quickly understand what's happening environmentally. And a podcast is a really good way to do that because you are talking to someone inside their head. And
right in their ear.
Right in their ear. I can be the voice in their head and we can have a conversation about how to protect the environment in a way that is smart, in a way that is reasonable.
And tell us about the podcast and how it differs from other podcasts that are about the environment. Because it's a big ocean out there.
It's a big ocean.
How does your fish fit in?
There's a lot of environmental content. We try to create entertaining and informative shows where we bring on people you might not commonly hear about, where we talk about something that most hosts wouldn't want to talk about, which is garbage. So we talk about garbage and we talk about how to apply it to people's lives directly. This is not an environmental show for other environmental researchers, although I hope they listen. This is an environmental show for people who are busy, who may not have the time, and who don't want to waste their time protecting the environment.
Nice. I liked how you slipped that in there. And what I think is really great about it is that you kind of tell us what we can think about different things. Because I think, for me, I don't really know what to believe, but you really whittle it down in a way that's very succinct and is actually oftentimes surprising. There are things that I've learned from your show that made me kind of change my perspective on a lot of things, or maybe worry less about some of the things that I tend to worry about, being a very anxious person. One of the things that I noticed that was pretty fun is that you do a lot of interesting sound effects. Did I actually hear you trying to drink water through printer paper in one episode?
Yeah. You caught me. I like to make sound effects, and I also like to make fun of paper straws. So that was a good opportunity where both those interests could sort of cross over.
I was kind of happy to hear you kind of talking trash about paper straws, because I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, paper straws, there hasn't been any research that I've seen peer-reviewed yet, but the suspicion is that because we know that paper bags are worse for the environment than plastic bags, we could logically follow that assumption over to paper straws. And so banning plastic straws is an opportunity to rethink drinks, or to have reusable straws that are made of metal, that are made of glass, that are made of other materials. And instead, we're just replacing plastic with paper, which is just going to have different environmental impacts.
Okay, and it doesn't taste nice in your mouth either. So
doesn't taste better, and it's just kind of a waste.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
Please don't. That's actually why I like listening to your show, because it's got a lot of humor in there. It's not as serious as some of the environmental podcasts are, considering how much of a concern the environment and climate change is. Now, you have some exciting news. You have a live show coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. We have a live show coming up August 31st in Taipei. We're going to have 3 panelists from electric vehicles to sustainable textiles, to smart trash cans, and we're going to have them all on stage, and we're all going to talk about how to make a business that is both sustainable environmentally and economically, because you can make a really good environmental product, and if nobody buys it, then it's not really that environmental.
Yeah, if you can make environmentalism kind of also a moneymaker, I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of people will be on board. Well, yeah. I enjoy your podcast a lot. Waste Not, Why Not, of course, is based here in Taiwan. It's not only about Taiwan, but it does highlight many of the ways that Taiwan can share its expertise with the rest of the world. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Nate Maynard.
Thank you, Andrew. It's always a pleasure.
This has been the Waste Not, Why Not podcast. What you had just heard was recorded in an actual TV studio in Taipei, Taiwan. Subscribe to our show wherever you get our podcasts. Give us a good rating on Apple. Support us on Patreon. We are Waste Not, Why Not on Patreon and Facebook, and Waste Not Pod on Twitter. This has been a Ghost Island Media production. The episode has been made possible by Radio Taiwan International. Original theme song by Chris Lowe. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, Daniel. Bye-bye.